Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. I'm Todd Sweeta, President of Archbishop Hoban, and I welcome you to our special evening tonight to dedicate the McCool Center for Entrepreneurial and Leadership Studies. I'd like to give a special welcome first, though, to members of Hoban's Board of Directors who are here, the Advisory Council members of the Center, and those some special guests here that are representing Bounce, the GAR Foundation, and a number of you representing the University of Akron. We're thrilled you could be with us tonight as well. The Ascenti and Scala Families Innovation Center has always had two aspirations. First, this makerspace has been in full motion for our engineering curriculum and for other creative pursuits that our teachers have come up with across disciplines. The second goal was to develop a premier entrepreneurial and leadership program utilizing the space across the hall, driven by the generosity of the McCool family, who's provided the initial funding for research, development, and personnel. The overarching goal is to create a synergy between these areas of the Innovation Center to maximize educational outcomes that we feel are important regardless of what we're doing at the school. Creativity, critical thinking, problem identification, problem solving, communication, collaboration, but most importantly, all infused with a moral compass as a Holy Cross school. We say that great minds can do great things, and we believe our young people have those great minds, and they excite us every day with their creativity and the things that they do. And couldn't help to think, Jim, that when you graduated in 1977, that this young entrepreneur
I think we got the cover.
Oh, what time? Yeah. Killing me, Todd.
was certainly planting seeds for great things. Seriously, his exemplary career with Schwab and the life and leadership lessons that he learned throughout his career truly make him the perfect person to envision greatness for this very special program we have for our young people. And so on behalf of all of us, especially the students, thank you, Jim, and we'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
I'm going to start looking for your pictures. Todd, thanks for that kind introduction. And before I say anything further, my wife Diana wanted me to make sure that I conveyed her best. She's in California, and where we've been spending most of the winter, and had other obligations. And so she sends her best to our Hoban and Akron community friends. And I have to assure you that the weather differences between here and Palm Springs had absolutely nothing to do. Sorry. You know, Patty Bralick, Patty's in the room somewhere, classmate, 77. Remember Brother Leonardo?
Oh, quite well.
I'm having a flashback, Patty, because my freshman year at Hoban in 1973, in speech class, we had Brother Leonardo, and I remember of all the things he told us, those famous 3 B's, which were, of course, be sincere, be brief, and, of course, be seated. And I certainly want to be brief because what's really important is to hear from our leader, our director of our program, Jason Zick, who you're going to hear in a little bit, and one of his students. And his energy and passion for this program is going to be quite evident and also quite contagious. And I have to say it's indeed humbling to be here in front of all of you, some really incredible leaders here in this community who've done so much for the community. And it means a lot for me for you to recognize this opportunity for our students and for this community by your support and sharing your time. I'm truly humbled by your presence, so thank you. Your presence is a testament not only to your support for the Hoban values, but also for the ambitions and the aspirations we have of teaching our students about how to compete grow and thrive in the 21st century global workplace. And all those jobs, many of which are brand new, and some jobs haven't even been created yet but will be, I can't think of a better program here at Hoban between the Innovation Center and the rest of the curriculum in the STEAM, the Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math program, combined with this, how much better our students will be prepared for that challenging but yet bright future for them. I was asked recently about what drove me to get involved with this, and aside from my wonderful picture there as a graduate of Hoban that you just saw, I graduated from the University of Akron, and I had the experience early on of joining up with an entrepreneur here in downtown Akron in the early 80s. Founded his own firm, and I was the second person brought on. And somehow, through some very challenging times, through a lot of near misses and some failures, that little startup company in downtown Akron eventually grew to about 40 employees. And then in 1995, it was acquired by a much bigger company, Charles Schwab. Fast forward to, let's see, it was July of 2017, where after 30 some odd years with the small startup company and then Schwab, my wife and I made the decision to return back to our roots here in Akron after we were living in California for some time. And that's why I'm here. Because looking back, I had an amazing set of experiences and learnings in a small company and what it took to get that startup company to survive, to prosper, and to learn. And I accelerated that development as part of the Charles Schwab organization and leadership development. And these are the very attributes that when I came back to Hoban and joined the board and I saw the initial vision for this innovation center that you're all gathered in right now, it became clear that there was an opportunity to take it and put the exclamation point on by sponsoring the Center for Leadership and Entrepreneurial Studies. And so we did. I can share with you that my most cherished times in my career were those routine one-on-ones I had with Charles Schwab himself, a true entrepreneur. He goes by Chuck, actually, and I can tell you that in the truest sense, he started with nothing. He failed many times. He had a severe learning disability growing up. And yet, perseverance and his vision helped me build a company that today has some 26,000 employees, including about 650 employees here in our Richfield Service Center here in Summit County, in Akron area. So I wish I could bottle up and share the insights, the learnings I had from great leaders like Chuck Schwab and many others in our company and in the industry that I had a chance to meet in my career. And that's really what drove me to say, how can we model some of those learnings here at the high school level so these students can be better prepared as they get into college and obviously their careers. You know, the learnings that I had were not taught in the classroom, and that's really what we're ultimately trying to do here, to teach and bring experience into the classroom and integrate with this wonderful program. I want to share with you also that when we first started this, it was just primarily the Entrepreneurship Center, and we didn't have the word leadership in there. And then we got talking about that, and I came to the conclusion that not everybody is wired to be an entrepreneur. In fact, if you really met an entrepreneur or got up close in front, you know as well as I do that they can be weird birds. They think differently. They're wired differently. They have an unbelievable amount of courage in the face of dauntless challenges and insurmountable obstacles, and yet they persevere. But one characteristic that we can take from any entrepreneur who's successful over time are the various common attributes of leadership. I mentioned a couple of them already. Courage. But they also have an innate ability to see the future and see around corners before anybody else does. They view failure not as a label, but as a learning. And they persevere. They have a vision. And they're especially gifted in communicating and influencing others on their vision. They're the best communicators we've seen. But ultimately, their leadership is a service-oriented leadership, where leadership is about service to others and ultimately making a better place for others in our community, if not the world. And so it followed that we wanted to incorporate leadership development as a key and a very critical ingredient for this overall program. I want to recognize some of the leaders here that have agreed to serve with me on the advisory board, starting off first with Phil Maynard and Roger Reed, who have been unofficial mentors of mine. I see Phil. Where's Roger? I want to acknowledge Roger, right over there. Roger and Phil, you've already done so much for the community, and so your gift of time and helping me shape this vision and the support of it is quite meaningful for me and certainly for the students here. But I also want to acknowledge, and I don't think he's here, who's going to try to make it, Bill Considine from Children's Hospital has agreed to be part of our advisory board, as well as Dean Robbie Crovey. I saw him earlier. Is Robbie still here? From the College of Business, and that's really critical because we look to see how we will integrate some opportunities together with the University of Akron and do some really cool things you might even hear Jason speak to tonight. And then finally, rounding out our advisory board, I'm thrilled to announce that Christine Meyer, president of the J.R. Foundation, has agreed to be part of our program as well. The last thing I want to share is that many of you have been generous with your time and your talent and your treasure with Hoban. Certainly the families that built the Innovation Center here, the Bill Scala family and the Sente family. And I likewise want to share or make a request too, that if you're so inspired by what you're seeing here, about not just today, but for the future, in order to help us continue to grow this program, in order to help us get to an even higher level of accomplishment for our students, and ultimately to attract more students to Hoban, I'll let you know that we have set aside $100,000 to be used as additional matching contributions for any contributions that are made towards the Leadership and Entrepreneurial Studies Center. So if you're so inclined to share or know others who might want to share and get behind this incredible program that's developing here before our eyes, I know that Mike Domenico will be more than happy to with any of the details. So with that, thanks again for letting me share my thoughts and my views about this great program and the things going on here at Hoban. Let me now turn to introduce to you the director of this program we were so fortunate to find. Jason Zick has been here, I think, 14 years. He's taught economics and history, outstanding student success records, and I've already talked to some students who just rave about being in this class, Jason. So, well, we brought Jason on to provide more structure for the program and to, again, build the connections into the community. And we're so grateful for Jason for your leadership. So please welcome Jason Zick, the director of our program.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. The teacher, we always wait a little bit, see if we get a little participation. Thank you. Let me start by saying thank you to all of you for being here. This is just a really exciting time, really a great time to be a Hoban student, great time for the community. So I want to say thank you to all of you for being here and for your continued support of Hoban. A quick thank you for Todd and Emily and everything they've done to get this program up and off the ground. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you to Mike and also to Vicki Srail. Where's she at? For everything you've done to make tonight possible. I think the place looks great, as I fully expected it would. But also thank you for always being, open ears and open offices for me whenever I need to run something by you. So thank you as well. I want to thank my parents for being here tonight and take this moment to formally recognize that just a few days ago it was my dad's birthday. And since he's into his later 70s, he wants to make sure that everybody knows that as often as possible. So happy birthday, Dad. And of course, the man of the hour, Jim McCool. Before I had a chance to meet Jim, his reputation had already preceded him. Everyone told me what a great guy this is. You're so fortunate to meet him, to work with him, and just wait till you have a chance to get to know this guy. And really, he's lived up to everything that they've had to say about him. Jim's just a wonderful human being, incredibly generous, very, very bright, hardworking. So thank you for everything you've done to make this a reality, Jim. Truly, thank you. So, while we are dedicating the center tonight, the class has been up and running for the past 2.5 months. And in that time, a lot of really cool things have happened. But before I get into talking about the class, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about education in general. In preparing for this role, teaching the class and directing the center, I went to a number of conferences. One of those conferences, which stood out to me, I was introduced to a guy named Ted Dintersmith. Has anyone heard his name before? It's okay. Ted Dintersmith was an educator, is now a writer, and also a filmmaker. He wrote a book called What School Could Be, and also made a very powerful documentary called Most Likely to Succeed, which I highly recommend if you have or about an hour of time and a few dollars. Take a look at this documentary. Really powerful and interesting stuff. And I bring that up because Ted likes to talk about our current educational model, which is going on 130 years old now. Think about that for a second. How much has changed in the last 130 years? This is going back to the 1890s. This is before cars were on the roads. This is before light bulbs were common. In fact, I think this is just a few years after the first commercially viable light bulb was created. This is back in the day when Brother Joe and Brother Ed were still in college. I miss those guys. But in that time, with all these changes, the way we deliver education has largely been unchanged. We borrowed the system from the Prussians. Think about that, Prussia, back around the 1890s. Brought it here and really haven't done much since. That's not to say that teachers aren't doing amazing things in their classrooms, which they are. And that's not to say that I want to be critical of this system. I think that it did a great job preparing students for the 20th century, for an industrial society. But I think we all know very clearly that the 21st century looks to be very different than the 20th century. Jim mentioned it a little bit. Todd mentioned it when he was talking for a little bit. Automation, technology, the ability for machines, robots to do the tasks that humans used to be able to do, this is accelerating at a more and more rapid pace. And I don't say that to make people feel nervous. A lot of folks feel nervous when they hear that. I don't think it's something to be scared about. I think it's something to be excited about. But it's also something to be very prepared for. And that's a big part of what went into designing this class and what will continue going into designing this center. What are these 21st century skills that we need to prepare students with? And it turns out that those skills mirror entrepreneurial skills. In fact, Todd said a lot of the same ones I'm about to say now. Skills like public speaking, collaboration, the ability to listen actively to others, self-confidence, self-awareness, the ability to influence, negotiate, and persuade others, design, innovation, and I think the mother of all of these skills, empathy. No matter how hard we try to teach a machine, I don't think that they'll ever quite feel what it's like to be a human being or be able to see from the perspective of another, which is why that skill is so incredibly important, but more on that in a bit. So when students come into my class, I try to make it as much as I can an unclass. This isn't a class with a textbook or notes or standard tests. There is homework, but generally the homework is done in journals. I want students to go out and do it. As I like to say, the world is your laboratory. Go out and experiment. Or the world is your playground. Go out and have some fun with it. And then write about the results. Talk to us about the results. What did you find out from trying this new skill that you learned about in here? If we're going over collaboration, maybe the students will come in and build towers out of spaghetti and marshmallows. And after they're done, they feel very excited about how tall their tower is, but that wasn't the point of the exercise. The point of this exercise is instead to ask yourself, what do I do when I get into a group? Do I lead? Do I stay quiet? Do I put my head down and get to work? Was it the people I was with? Can I do better? Can I be the leader next time? These are the questions I ask students to reflect upon after they're done building their towers and then writing their journals, which sometimes we talk about and sometimes it's just for them. I hope they go back and review it. Recently, to work on negotiation, we did a game called Bigger and Better. Bigger and Better starts with every student having a paper clip, or a rubber band if they chose, and then spending a week trying to trade this for something bigger and better. And at the end of the week, we see what they come up with. There's a great TED Talk about this, by the way, with a guy who ended up with a house. None of our students quite went that far. Actually, just curious, Abby, what did you end up with? Not to call you out.
granola bar.
A granola bar.
It was pretty good though.
Bigger and better. Cam?
Pencil sharpener with an eraser on it.
With an eraser, everybody. Nick?
Rubik's Cube.
A Rubik's Cube, very nice. Hunter?
A few pencils.
A few pencils, awesome. What about Ayaka?
YSL lipstick.
That's right, you had the lipstick. And then Bridget?
10 Band-Aids and a Band-Aid dispenser.
10 Band-Aids and a Band-Aid dispenser. All very good. I'll tell you who I thought won the contest was probably a student who came in with a signed Browns jersey. I think you might know him. Signed Browns jersey, which definitely bigger. Better, I'm not so sure, but definitely bigger. Still kind of impressive. But these are the types of things that we do in class. We pick a skill, we do an activity to get the students excited about the skill, go over what it can do for you, and then it's all about go out and try it. Go out and play around with it. See what you come up with. That's not to say there aren't large projects though. There are 3 entrepreneurship projects that take place during the year. The first was about social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship, for those who don't know, is essentially trying to solve a social problem by creating an enterprise or a venture. So it's not about just throwing money at the problem or looking at the state to solve it, but rather creatively trying to solve this problem through an organization. One of my favorite examples was from Evan Seiler, who's sitting over there. Evan is a talented entrepreneur because he is an entrepreneur. Ask him when you have a moment about his magazine company, unless he's already told you about it. And he'll just light up and tell you. Very, very bright student, knows as much as there is to know in some ways, at least for a 17-year-old? 16-year-old to know about business. But he's experienced it. He's gone out and done it. Evan's idea was a micro-lending bank to be held here in Akron called Rubber City Lending. And I loved it. I thought it was a great idea. But even better was his branding, the website that he built, and even the commercial that he made. All of them were professionally made and just really, really impressive. Once again, if you have a chance, please talk to Evan about these, and I'm sure if he has his iPad, he'd be happy to show you. Our second entrepreneurship project is about a local venture, something realistic. What can students do to take advantage of solving problems at the Hoban community, or in the Hoban community? Students, teachers, staff, whomever. At this point, they're working on those. They'll be pitching them in 2 weeks. Hopefully, to a small panel of judges. So to give you an example of some of the ideas, some common themes were a coffee shop. No less than 5 different groups are working on bringing a coffee shop to fruition. Evan, of course, being Evan, has already submitted an executive summary, met with Dr. Ramos over here, and it looks like we very much might have a coffee shop next year run by students. Aside from that, we see a lot of students trying to work on lunch lines with pre-ordering services. A lot of students going after pens and pencils being constantly lost, whether it be rental, whether it be, I guess, rental. Vending services, pencil and pen vending machines. And also students taking on uncharged iPads, which is a thorn in the side of every teacher. One of my favorite groups, a couple of girls, are working on a solar charger, which would be possibly sold to furniture stores to put into desks. And I didn't realize solar chargers work with fluorescent lights. And Mr. Perro, that's, yeah, I didn't want to say something stupid right there, but I guess that is true. And they've actually been working with Mr. Perro over here in the Innovation Center, which is our dream. This is what we want to see happen. And they created an MVP, a minimum viable product, for those of you who know the lean startup lingo, which is really awesome. In 2.5 months, we have our first MVP. They're creating it, they've wired it, and they're testing currently to see if it will actually charge an iPad. They'll be pitching those soon. At the end of the year, May 21st, I think, is the day we have set aside. Don't quote me on that just yet. Okay, you can quote me on it, Vicky gave me the nod. May 21st is when we're going to do our first Hoban Shark Tank. So this will bring together the top pitching students from the classes. Looks like about 7 groups will participate. And this is a anything goes kind of entrepreneurship activity. This isn't necessarily social, though it can be, nor is it at Hoban. Though it is somewhat small cap, we're looking for startups that require less than $7,000. So if any of you are interested in being sharks, I already know I have at least one volunteer. Thank you, Phil Brennan. But if any of the rest of you are interested in being sharks for that event, there are cards on my desk, or please talk with me today. But there will also be an email coming out soon. But I'm looking forward to that being a really exceptional event. A couple other things I want to mention real quick before I close is we just took a field trip to Bounce, which is a small business incubator / software accelerator. And if you haven't seen what they're doing over there, do yourself a favor, take a look at their social media presence or their website. Just a really awesome Akron initiative. Really, really impressive stuff. I was a little bit nervous going in there. What will 50 students will be able to have a good field trip here? But it was an incredible experience. Bill Manby, who's back there, put this together for us, so thank you very much, Bill. We got to play with virtual reality goggles. We did a little bit with augmented reality, and the kids just lit up. Incredibly excited. They came back and they couldn't even have their round tables because they were so excited they wanted to keep talking about it. So it was a really, really great trip. Also, I wanted to mention that we just did our first Small Business Friday. And Small Business Friday is a way for us to invite in local business owners to actually talk to the students. Let's get them engaged with actual business owners, and maybe some opportunities will arise from it. Who knows? I would like to see some internships eventually. Our first guests were John and Tara Chimura. They own a bow tie / tie company called H-Bomb Ties. I might mention that today is World Autism Awareness Day. And the reason I invited John tonight, John's sitting right over here, the other gentleman wearing a bow tie, blue bow tie for autism awareness, is because this is a social venture in many ways. John and Tara, their son Harrison, who's 10 years old, was born with Downs and autism. As you can imagine, it's difficult for kids like Harrison, as they grow up, to find steady employment. So John put this together as a way to provide that. John and Tara put this together as a way to provide that for their son. And they hope to grow it to the point where they can hire other kids with disabilities. It takes a long time for them to learn these skills, and so let's get it going while they're younger. I'm dangerously close to making that same child labor joke that you were making earlier, so I'm not going to do that for. But again, teach them these skills when they're younger, so that they can eventually get involved in this. So if you have a chance, please feel free to talk with John. It was a great experience. The students learned about not just the path to starting up a business, but of course the daily trials, the difficulties, the costs, and all about the social media marketing. That really lit the students up, I think. John is kind of a numbers nerd, and so he really, told them all about the analytics, all the things you could see, who's clicking on your ad, exactly what demographics are looking at the things, how do you target these specific demographics, and what the right stuff to put on social media is. What was that line you used? Document, don't create. Document, don't create. Turns out people like to just see what's going on in your life, and they love to see what's going on with Harrison. So I encourage you to talk with John for a moment, or at least check out H-Bomb Ties on their website or their social media platforms. So as you can see, a lot has happened in 2.5 months, and we're just scratching the surface. The center and the class are kind of the same thing right now, but eventually they're going to go in separate directions next year. The class will remain the class, which I wanted to mention that we already have we have 65 students in the class right now. Without any promotion, 65 kids signed up for this. So there is a desire for entrepreneurship here. Next year, we hope to see rotating student startups as a part of what we can make happen. We're looking for seed money. Hopefully GAR comes through. Hint, hint, wink, wink. We also would like to put together a speaker series. And ultimately, Jim and I have been looking into a software suite called Bright Idea. And this would enable an administrator, in this case probably being me, to post constant opportunities for students to engage in challenges or pitch contests. This could involve leadership or creativity or design. This could be daily, weekly, monthly. It could be a big-time annual pitch. So Bright Idea, I think, has all sorts of really great applications at the high school level, and we're working on bringing that here. That will also be a part of the center. Our goal is to make entrepreneurship a part of the Hoban culture. We want all students in every class to experience this mindset. And how great would that be? If within a class, they can take what they're learning and apply it to a venture, or at least apply the mindset. So let me leave you with one final thought. As Jim mentioned, he and I talked a lot about this. This is not an intro to business course, nor center. We don't want to get bogged down in those types of details. Those students will learn some of those things. Instead, this is about entrepreneurship and leadership, which are, at their hearts, about empathy and service. They're about doing service to others. That's why they fit so well here at Hoban High School. It's about serving your fellow human beings. What can I do? Where's my empathy? What can I do to make someone else's life better? How can I improve the lives of others? Not what I think is great, it's what they would think is great. And that's what entrepreneurship is really all about. So we hope to equip students with 21st century skills that will enable and inspire them to seek the problems of others, as was mentioned, design innovative solutions, and then have the courage and leadership abilities to make a positive impact, whether or not that's in their organizations, in their families, in their communities, or of course for their customers if they do indeed start a small business. And of course, on top of all that, we hope such students will embody the same generosity and desire to serve others that makes a place like this possible. Thank you all for being here. I would like to invite up one of my students. The first day I met this kid, I actually talked to other teachers, like, what do you think of him? Like, I love him, you know, but is he one of those guys who's just, you know, he's gonna start by showing me what he's a great kid, but then become, you know, a pain in the butt the rest of the year? Is he gonna be one of those guys? But no, Cam has lived up to his also stellar reputation with other students. They said, no, great kid, great guy. This is not the first time we've called on him to talk with us a little bit. So I invited Cam Miser to talk with you a little bit about the class and about his experience. So please, Cam Miser.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Cam Miser. I'm a junior here at Archbishop Hoban. I'm a peer mentor, student ambassador, recently got accepted into the National Honor Society. I'm also a member of the football team. But among these many things, I'm a very lucky student of Mr. Zick. Being the first semester that this class is offered, I'm so glad and just joyful that I took this class. Ever since I was young, I can just remember being interested in that business mind, that entrepreneurial mind of hanging out with friends and trying to start up t-shirt companies and things like that and creating designs. And obviously, they never went through, but it was worth a shot. So we tried that. But going into the school year, I knew it was a class that I had to take. I knew I had to get my hands on this. And from the first day, I just noticed that it was a different class, something that you don't get to experience at many other schools. It's not a class where you go in, you take notes, take tests every week, but rather project-based class, designing products to better the greater academic community. I can remember even our second project my partner was Nick there, and we created a nonprofit organization that would better prevent cyber hacking and inform students and teachers on how to prevent that without making money. It's not necessarily about the money, but bettering the greater community background. The classes helped me better understand the world of business and marketing and influence. It's really helped me create an entrepreneurial mindset of influence and grit and tenacity and all these things that I can take with me into the bigger world. So I'm just very thankful for the class. It was great. Thank you all for coming out. I just hope you have a great night. So thank you.
God, were those two superstar people that just talked? We're so lucky. Everyone remain seated. We're just going to simply have a blessing dedication of the space by Father Mike Osberg. Father Mike.
If you would all join me, please, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Merciful and loving Father, we thank you for gathering us together this evening as we ask your blessing not just on this learning space and the new program which will emanate from it, but more importantly on the students and educators who will use it. We give you thanks for the generosity of the McCool family and others who have come to value learning, research, and collaboration, and because of their successes and challenges in business, know how important it is to put knowledge into practice. We ask your blessing of inspiration and guidance to come upon Jason Zick, the McCool Center's director, the educators and collaborators, and especially upon the McCool Center's students, who will gain wisdom and knowledge in business and commerce, in the economy and the market, to make our community and the world better for us and for all people through effective leadership practices. Good and gracious God, strengthen all of us to use our gifts and abilities that you have given for the good of our building your kingdom here on earth. And through the intercession of St. Joseph, the patron of the Brothers of Holy Cross, St. Andre, the patron of the poor and sick, and Blessed Basil Moreau, the founder of the Congregation of Holy Cross, we join together in prayer. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
the Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
And may Almighty God bless you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
That's our program. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And please, let's continue the fellowship. Plenty of food.